From the beginning, the very start, Jesse was always on camera.
We wanted to record every little thing he did.
They filmed me from the minute I came into this world.
My son, Jesse. So welcome, Jesse.
Hi, Mom.
Hi, Lonnie.
He is so beautiful.
He looks like Sherry. But it'll be like my disposition, of course.
I'm Jesse Lane, and this is the first 30 years of my life. So I grew up in a little neighborhood called Castle Rock in Pennsylvania. It's almost like it was a dream. It was this magical, snowy neighborhood down in this little cul-de-sac. The leaves would fall, my dad would be raking, my mom would be, like filming or cooking, and my mom and my dad were so in love that they would always want to be near each other and help each other with the raking or with the landscaping or with building the deck out back or like whatever they were doing. They were just so happy.
And I just remember the feeling of just, I'm so happy. I have such joy and such peace. I love being Jesse's mother. He was such an easy baby. Life was full of joy. I just felt so thankful to the Lord. So here we had our one little child, and so we were excited. Now we were going to have a big family. It was time to have our next child, and we were having trouble, so we went to a fertility specialist. He was a sweet Jewish doctor, and I had been witnessing to him, telling him about Jesus and that my husband also was Jewish. And while this Jewish doctor was doing the ultrasound, I looked up and I said, "Is that a tear I see in your eye?" He said, "Somebody up above really is looking out for you. It's a miracle that you ever had a child."
Jesse was a delightful child, and because he was an only child, he got a lot of attention, and so he was the best kid in the world. As far as my brother and sister-in-law were concerned, we all felt that way too, because we waited a long time for Michael to get married and have a baby, and so he's just always been a treasure.
Mr. Dada! Oh, Mr. Oh, thank you!
Early on in Jesse's life, we all lived in Pennsylvania, right outside of Philadelphia. And like I said, we were a close family. We were together a lot. He was with our family a lot because he was very close with my kids. In particular, my son, Jordan. They were like brothers growing up.
Jordan was the brother that I didn't have. My parents wanted to have another kid, they wanted me to have a sibling growing up, but I had Jordan.
Jesse and I had a great childhood, really. His parents treated me like their own. In many cases, they treated me better than they treated him because he was kind of a little punk and I was so sweet and respectful.
Yeah, who's sleeping over?
Jordan!
Jordan? Hey, who's that? Another moose. 2 little mooses in the tub.
So from a young age, my mom would just expose me to different opportunities and see what kind of sparks my interest.
Do you like painting? Blue and green. They make teal, I think.
My dad would also let me work with him in his paint studio. He had all these different glazes and paints. He was a faux finish artist. I would be down there as a young kid cutting in the edge. I appreciate that so much that he let me kind of explore even from a very young age.
You're a pretty good painter, Jess. Look, hit the nail with the hammer. Show Mommy and Daddy how you hit the nail.
Wow.
I was raised in northern Minnesota. I was the oldest of 7, and my dad was a cattle jockey, so we had a corral and horses, and my parents were kind of hands-off, and so we were well taken care of, but we were on our own a lot. So I learned a lot of independence, and I just really had it in me to let Jesse explore things, that he'd have a sense of adventure and creativity.
Your guitar bell back?
Sherry and I are Christians, and we've always tried to let God lead our lives. As much as we loved Castle Rock, we just really felt led to sell our business and house and go towards ministry.
My dad actually started ministering to the crack house heroin addicts in downtown Philadelphia. It was called El Segundo.
A place called El Segundo, which means the destruction after the devastation. And we were told, you can't come down here. They all have guns, they all have AIDS, and you need to wear gloves, and what are you doing? And we just felt led to go by the Lord's grace. We brought Jesse down to give out egg sandwiches in El Segundo, and he was able to see how bad it can get. It gave Jesse an opportunity to share the love of God down there in his 5-year-old way.
So at some point, my parents realized, all right, like you're doing the crack house thing, which was good. It was probably like a year or so that my dad did that. But at some point, my mom, she became a real estate agent.
I decided to go back to work and get my real estate license. So we put Jesse in Christian school. By then he was in 2nd grade, and it seemed at first like he was really doing well and thriving.
They realized, all right, let's kind of go to the next level here. So my dad joined my mom's real estate team.
Sherry already had a team going, and I joined the team. We became the Lane team in the Lane group. We were getting incredibly busy in the real estate business, and the teachers were calling and saying, Jesse's starting to be a problem.
He was rebellious, resistant. He really couldn't tolerate traditional education.
I was not fitting into their box. You know, you have to remember this information. When did Columbus sail? 42. So it's like all these dates. You have to remember dates. You have to remember specific. It's like, why am I learning these things?
The content for Jesse was boring. It's part of a family trait, actually. We're a bunch of creative people, but school is excruciatingly painful. And for Jess, looking back at who he was then from who he is now, there was no place for him to be initiating creativity and new ideas coming in. It was just recitation of what was already fed to him. Boring.
The traditional education system is fitting you inside of a box. If you don't fit in, you're not successful. You have ADD. So they diagnosed me.
They decided that Jesse has ADHD and put him on Ritalin, and it did calm him down a bit. You know, it did help him, but eventually it wore thin, and it really wasn't the solution.
And they tried these different pills, and eventually I slowly kind of was a little bit better, but then you would crash, and I felt stuck.
The school was putting pressure on Jesse to go by the rules, and we were trying to talk to Jesse about keeping the rules too, and it wasn't working out.
With Jesse, the way he's wired, trying harder would only make it more difficult. That doesn't work for ADHD people or ADD people, because the synapses work less when you put them under pressure.
The teachers would say it. I mean, to my face, they'd be like, you're full of baloney. Like, you're not gonna make it. This is the textbook. He's not doing it. He's done. Get him out of here, you know? It's like, this was the time of my life where my parents were a little bit more like, Jesse was kind of like, you know, this side thing happening, and they loved me. They always have loved me, but they were busy. So my parents ultimately hired everything out, from the cooking to the cleaning to the dog training to the let's take care of Jesse to let's give Jesse a whole snowboard pass for the whole year and send him to the snowboard mountain.
We weren't really living life. We were just like on a treadmill. And you need something, let's buy it, let's order it done. Get me a cook, get me a housekeeper, get me a tutor. Hey, take care of this kid, train the dog. We thought we could buy his happiness also.
So I was off to the races to finding my own way without my parents', you know, supervision or guidance. And I was guided by the older kids that I would try to hang out with, these 18, 19-year-olds looking for some guidance. And what were they doing? They were smoking weed. Plus I saw these guys on TV, La Viva La Bam, and he's like filming everything. I'm like, that's me. I'm going to film as much as I possibly can. I wanted a camera. So my dad took me to Best Buy. He spent like $800 on this mini DV camera, had his little tapes, you know, and you put them in, you close it, you know, and ding, and it's like, here we are. And I flipped out the screen, and that changed my life.
Yeah, we just filmed everything. We watched Jackass and wanted to be those guys. That's just how our relationship started, is filming and documenting everything we did. Whether it was snowboarding all day at Spring Mountain, or if it was jumping into shopping carts and running as fast as we can and barreling into a curb to smash into a bush.
And Lawrence and I would stay up till 3 o'clock in the morning editing our movies on iMovie. We would snowboard, we would skateboard, we would do it all. So in 5th and 6th grade, I was just more and more rebellious, and I wouldn't follow the school rules.
Jesse was a handful. He was kind of a bully. He'd make fun of kids.
And I wanted to kind of get a rise out of people and make them laugh, and whatever it took to me to get that reaction, I did it.
The principal of the school called me in. Actually, he said, "Michael, I don't know what to do." I didn't. He was saying how bad it was. I was thinking, what's the big deal? You know, it's just a kid.
And it led to this point of me just getting expelled.
It devastated us. We had no idea what to do. So we sent Jesse to East Norton Middle School, and right off the bat, things weren't looking good there either.
So when I first got to East Norton Middle School, I was shown around by this really cool kid. I remember that moment when I was like meeting everybody, and I was kind of like, all right, like feeling my place. I kind of like jabbed at one of them, and next thing you know, like an hour later, I was at my locker, and this kid just socks me in the face, right in the mouth, and I start bleeding because I have braces on that's like crushed into my lip. And then his friend comes up and socks me on the other side of my lip. They never even got in trouble. Like I was in there like to the principal guy, like trying to explain, like, I don't even know, like, but, and it's like, all right, next day I'm in class. Like, it's just like, what are you gonna do about it? You're in middle school, learn your lesson, get back up, figure it out. So East Norton Middle School was a little bit more like behavior control versus like learning anything useful.
Or if there's one more time for you, Jesse, this is like the 4th annoying thing you've done to me already. I'll sing your sorry sack of bones right out of here. And with a write-up.
Sorry.
Too late to be sorry.
Okay.
The bullet has left the gun.
So the real estate business treated us really well. We were at the top of our game. We had a huge team, but between Michael and I, cracks are starting to form. Michael and I were in a bad spot, and also Jesse's life continued to decline.
One day, I decided to smoke pot on the bus ride to school, brought the weed into school, like in my bag. I remember the last period of the day, the disciplinary comes into the classroom and says, "Jesse Lane?" I'm like, "Yeah." And I remember walking over to the principal's office, and there were 2 cops standing in the principal's office, and they searched me down. They found the weed, the pipes, the lighters, the cologne, all the paraphernalia.
When I got the call from the school that Jesse was in trouble, he got caught with some pot, I went to the school. There was 2 police officers. It was like a big bust or something. I mean, and they were trying to really scare him about jail and everything.
My parents were blown away. They were like, what are we gonna do with this kid?
When Michael called me when Jesse got kicked out of school, he just called. There was no text those days, you know, he just called up, and I said hello, and all he said was, "Jesse just got kicked out of school for smoking pot, pray." And he hung up.
So I came home from getting expelled from public middle school, which is like the worst of the worst. I wasn't allowed to hang out with friends. I wasn't allowed to play video games. They didn't know what to do with me. So, but I had to go to school, and they're still, you know, doing the real estate thing. But I'm not allowed to even go to public school. What do you do with a kid like that?
We're really out of options. The state is the system, and the system says the only place you can send him now is to alternative school.
So I remember I would get picked up with this white van with all these bad kids, like getting in, smelling like cigarettes.
Most of the kids, they say, that go to that school are on their way to prison.
And the first 2 hours was playing Halo on Xbox. So I'm here stuck with these kids. I'm like, do I really belong here? But they let me play Halo, so it's like, whatever, you know, like, it is what it is.
Our hearts were sunk. We didn't know there was another way or life to go by. I had a home church in my living room for 7 years because we were sick of the system of the church. We just didn't, after 30 years of charismania, we couldn't do it anymore.
Michael had met these friends, Jim and Joe, in Texas. They came to Philadelphia every year for a trade show to sell the walking sticks that were made in Texas. And they had really changed from when we first knew them. They had become very godly men that we really respected. And so Jim would visit us over the years for probably 8 years or so. And as we're getting more off kilter, he called ahead, and Michael said, well, you can come if you want to, but things aren't looking good here. Sherry's sleeping on the sofa and drinking wine, and she won't come to the home group. And Jesse's in alternative school, and
Jim sits me down and says, Michael, what are you doing? He's reading out of the scripture, I think it was the book of Timothy that Paul wrote. And he said, your house is out of order. You guys are out of order. What are you doing leading a home church?
I came in kind of with my tail between my legs, and they opened the Word of God, and every verse that they said just pierced me to the quick.
But they spoke that word under the anointing, and it hit me. And I called my group and I said, we're not doing this anymore.
So Jim was so passionate about my dad, even just coming down to Texas for just like a few days and see the culture.
And Michael was on an airplane within the month.
I came back from Waco and I said, Sherry, you need to come and feel and experience and see this place.
Jesse and Michael and I came down for Easter, and every Easter the community has a big music festival, and it was very impressive, and we were staying actually at Joe's house. And so we came home that night from the music program, and he said, so, how did you like it? What did you feel? I said, it was good. He had the fear of God. He said, you have got to repent. You need a crack in your heart. You need the love of God to get into your heart. And so I went to bed that night and prayed that prayer. God, please forgive me. And I woke up the next morning, and I had never read Pilgrim's Progress, but I realized I didn't have a burden on my back anymore. I had repented, and I just felt so much love and so much peace. And I came out to the porch. Michael was on the porch with Joe having coffee, and I said, Michael, we have to move here. He said, why? I said, I just feel so much love. And everything changed. When we first got here, I was like, the farm, the dirt, the rocks, the weeds. And all of a sudden it was like, oh, the flowers, the birds, the trees. It was a whole different thing. Just the love of God came into my heart. It was God.
So my parents made this decision, and I'm sitting there like, what? No, I'm not leaving my friends, and like Lawrence and Anthony, all these guys, like they're my best friends. They were everything to me because that's like what I had, was that group of guys. That was my relationships. They're like, well, you don't have a say in the matter because this is what's happening. And I'm like, well, I'm just gonna kill myself because I don't wanna move to Texas, which is crazy hearing that back. But I remember having those thoughts of like, I would rather not be like living to go move down there and be part of this weird like church group.
Wow, Jess, you don't come across friends like that easy.
I know, that's why I'm not living in Texas.
Don't make statements like that.
But
I'm not living in Texas.
They're awesome
Don't make
friends.
statements like that.
Film this.
So we were like, oh man, you're gonna go to a cult. They're gonna make you do all these weird things, and we didn't know what we were talking about. Again, we were kids, but ultimately we didn't want him to leave. We were the best of friends, and we had a great crew of guys.
The manager at our real estate office said, you're leaving, you're at the top of the market, you have the big office in the back with all your assistants, and you're going to Bumbleweed, Texas. She didn't even know what it was, and you're gonna stop wearing your jeans and her. And we went, yeah, we're going. There's another life to live.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to Texas, and I'm going to miss you, and I'll send you videos and stuff.
After a few months, the decision was made of, we are making this transformation. We packed our car with everything we had, our dog Luke, gave him some Benadryl, and we hit the road. So we roll up to Texas, and I was very shocked by the culture. Everybody had a Texas accent, everybody had a garden, everybody wore jeans and shirt when they were swimming. There's these like rules, and they call them patterns of this community that you have to follow if you want to live there. It wasn't really fitting in with this like, howdy y'all, like, yes sir, oh yes ma'am, they looked at me like I'm weird.
At first when we got to Texas, he was digging his heels in. It was hard for him to accept all this change.
I was extremely resistant to the people, the culture, the community, everything about it. I was like, this is not me.
Despite Jesse's resistance in the beginning, I could see that this change of culture, this change of environment was starting to spark something in him.
And I just felt this burning in me to do something entrepreneurial. And I was like, okay, what's around me? There's a lawnmower.
Jesse asked when we got here if he could use a lawnmower to start mowing neighbors' lawns and go into a little business, which he did.
I would drive around to this neighborhood that we lived in and knock on doors. I'm Jesse Lane. Can I mow your lawn? And all of a sudden I had all these clients in the neighborhood. I'm like this 15-year-old kid.
Even though Jesse was enjoying certain aspects of being here at Homestead, he still seemed partially closed off.
It took me months and months and months to start kind of like, okay, I'm here. I have to kind of break a little bit. So I started taking down walls. My parents brought me to church as a kid, but this was a different church. This was a different experience, which was way next level. And at the day of 9 months to when we moved there, which happened to be Easter Sunday, my heart cracked. I just got chills when I said that. I mean, like, the Lord filled my heart, and I was like praying in the Spirit. I was speaking in tongues. Everyone was praying for me in church, and everyone knew at that moment Jesse Lane broke, and came out of his shell.
Homestead was the best place for Jesse when he started growing spiritually because it was such an intentional environment.
So after I got filled with the Spirit, I just started saying yes to everything. This was a space that I was given more opportunity within a larger context of things for me to try. So one of the things that I was exposed to was building and construction, and I just immediately fell in love with it.
He learned carpentry. He was part of the young men that they would take along with them and teach them how to build a house. It was a foundation for what he's doing today.
I'm not sure that I really had that thought back in the day as far as like, oh, like this could be a career. I was more just like, I love this. I love like sawing something and like drilling. Like it felt so good, and that's why I kept doing it. I wasn't really like, I could make money. Like, no, I was always entrepreneurial, and it became that. I loved it. It was a passion.
We would get reports of different things that Jesse was slowly becoming this other person. It used to be like, oh, he's getting kicked out of school again. Now it's like, guess what? Jesse castrated a cow today. Like it was just like a bull today. These things. Like he was becoming this other person. Like it was just interesting hearing the transformation.
There was so much at Homestead Heritage that was so good for them. The back to the earth approach was just so healthy. And one of the things that I saw in Jesse that was really so advantageous to him was his love for horses, and that he started training horses. He would buy untrained horses with the money that he made from his lawn mowing business, and he learned how to train the horses.
I would sit there and read books at night about horse training, and I would go early in the morning and get him with the halter, and fighting him and get him into the round pen, and I would break these horses.
Which took a lot of learning on his part, effort on his part, responsibility.
I learned all that different stuff, trimming their hooves and cleaning them out and putting shoes on, and everything about farming and gardening and construction and people. You could feel the pulse of life because I was close to the dirt and I was experiencing God more than I ever had. So one of the leaders in the community, Warren, had this business called Brazos Soaks, and he would sell walking sticks. And so I remember going there, and there was this guy named Bill, beard, like a rugged looking guy. I saw him making these walking sticks. I wanted to hang out with Bill. I offered to go clean the sawdust, empty the trash cans, sweep up the floors. That was the job I was offered for $5.50 an hour.
Jesse was loving the idea of the building process. He was loving training horses, buying and selling horses, and ultimately the pinnacle was when he got into his own business making walking sticks.
So I would wake up early because my mom was very stringent on you have to accomplish this homeschooling, which is 12 and a half hours of homeschooling. I would knock it out in 8.5 hours.
Jesse was very motivated to get his work done. He knew he had to get X, Y, and Z all done because he could hardly wait to bolt out the door and run to train his horses, or most likely to work in the woodworking shop to make his walking sticks.
As Jesse got older and I was hearing news of maybe he wasn't as happy as he was getting older, being in this community that his parents had brought him to, wanting some more individuality, wanting to get out, experience life.
At Homestead, at the age of 18 or 19, you are given the choice to either stay at Homestead as part of the community for the rest of your life, to marry, raise your children, and be a part of it, or you don't fit in there and you need to take your life elsewhere.
So there came a point when Jesse graduated from homeschooling that it was time for him to make a decision whether he wanted this way of life.
So ultimately, it came to a head of, Jess, like, do you want to be baptized into the church or do you want to leave? And I said, I want to leave. That community completely changed who I am as a man. Without it, I wouldn't be the man I am today.
I gave him 3 choices of where he wanted to go.
So I chose my mom's brother, Steve, Council Bluffs, Iowa.
A lot of times when children leave an intentional community, often the parents will just throw in the towel and give up also. But we had exercised every option out there. Best thing we could do for Jesse is keep moving on toward God and follow our convictions. And God's the judge. He'd make things turn out how they could. But you can't help if your heart is broken, it's broken.
It was the second most devastating day of my life. The first one being when my father died. We put him on the bus and I went in the car. I had never cried like that since my dad died. And I still feel some of that. Kind of rips your heart apart.
Here I am, 19, and I roll up to Iowa. My mom's brother, my uncle Steve, takes me in. My parents aren't here. Like, I don't have all these like community people like telling me what to do. I'm like, I can do whatever I want. And so I'm like, I'm gonna buy a pack of cigarettes because I can. So then I started smoking cigarettes again. I got this janky truck with like a hole in the bottom. It was like $400, you know? So I got a job at Olive Garden. Absolutely hated it. Did that for like 2 months probably. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna get on like Craigslist because I remember I liked construction. So got a job working for this guy doing demo and like pouring concrete. And I was like working hard. I mean, I was out there laboring for a couple months, and then I looked around and got this other job with this guy that was a little bit more long lasting. I wound up leading some crews for him and running jobs after many, many months. So I was finally to the age where I could make my own decisions and no one was overbearing on top of me. And so I was still pursuing my passion with the construction thing, and I was like feeling that, like there's something here, but I didn't know what it was. But I'm gonna keep moving towards that. But I was also testing other boundaries because I was still kind of stuck in that mindset.
I really didn't know what was going on with him much. We just felt we just needed to keep hands off. He wants to try his wings, and you know, it seems like in God's kingdom, when you come up against a tough spot, that's when you really look for God. So we wanted him to come to an end of himself to find the Lord, and so we just let him fly.
So one time I went to downtown Council Bluffs and I saw this guy, and he was standing on the corner, and I'm like, where can I buy some weed? And he's like, hey man, like, you know, all right, come with me. But I'm like, do you have a car? He's like, no, like, I'll hop in yours. So we get in my truck and we drive like 20 minutes into the hood. I bought some weed from like $20 worth of weed. So I slowly started kind of smoking some pot. You know, again, I was 19 and a half or so. And I even bought larger quantities of marijuana and started kind of selling it at one point, you know, a little bit. I was like, oh, like a little business mind. But I played guitar in the bar, which was actually some of the best memories in Iowa, was jamming with this guitar that I spent like $1,500 on. As a kid who was broke, my dad sold my four-wheeler for me, which was like $2,500. I got that cash and I just smoked it all. And I bought this expensive guitar. So things were getting really bad in Iowa. Like I remember waking up one day and my truck was gone. There was these crazy meth heads that lived across the street and they stole my car, my truck. Wound up finding it like way in this neighborhood, like parked, like however I found it driving around. I was like, that's my truck. And I had to like get the hot wire thing fixed because it was like just broken. I was like, what am I doing here in Iowa? This is not me. I was sitting there stoned with a couple of roommates and I called my cousin Jordan, who's like my brother. And I was like, man, what are you up to?
So when we did catch up and he asked what I've been up to, what am I doing? I just responded, I'm waiting on you.
I'm like for me to move there? He's like, yeah. I'm like, what? Like, wow, this is crazy. Like, and I called my Aunt Lonnie.
And he called and he said that his truck had broken down and he had called his dad to ask for some money to help fix the truck. And he said, the only way I'll give you money to fix the truck is if you come back here. And so he was kind of distraught. And he said, I feel as if I have no family anymore.
Our son came to us, my husband and I, and said, hey, Jesse's not doing well. He has to get out of Iowa. It's just not a good place for him. He's not thriving. And I want him to come live here.
It had been in conversation. We knew that he wasn't happy or doing well where he was and in the situation he was, but it kind of evolved, I think, pretty quickly.
And everybody, to a person, said, well, he'll just come here. I mean, we love Jesse. He's part of us. He'll just come here. And I called Jesse back. I kind of want to cry because I love him so much, and he was so lost at that point.
And so I was like, yes, that's it. I loaded up my guitar, my clothes, and a little suitcase, and I got on the plane. Hit a layover in Dallas, and I'm like, Mom and Dad, can I see you?
When we met Jesse at the airport when he was taking his move from Iowa to Florida, I felt like Jesse looked like he'd been sleeping on a board for the last year. He was just skin and bones. It didn't even seem like our son.
He had a thyroid problem, what none of us knew about. And he was just, I don't know how to describe it, just as a sunken-in street person, all disheveled. It was heartbreaking. It was really heartbreaking.
I got off the plane in Jacksonville. My cousins were there with this sign that said, Happy birthday, Jesse. And I was like, so dazed and confused. I was like, oh yeah, it's my birthday.
I remember being sad seeing Jesse come down to baggage claim at the airport. Sad for him and really just curious to what degree of the life he had been living. And he just looked like Shaggy from Scooby-Doo with a guitar under his arm and a backpack, the scraggly little beard. And it was just kind of surreal to receive him like that.
Well, I was a bit shocked when I saw Jesse at first because he was so thin. He did not look well at all. My auntie instincts were, we need to take care of this young man. He needs to eat and eat well. And I knew that he was living here with Ellen and Alan at first, and he would certainly be well taken care of.
So at the core of me, I really did feel like this was the place I was supposed to be. And it wasn't any longer about what my parents thought I was supposed to be, because I'm now in my 20s and I'm my own man now. I can make my own decisions. When I first moved to Jacksonville, I got a job at Chick-fil-A. Didn't know what to do. I was like, whoa, this is like a whole new atmosphere and experience. And it was interesting. Yeah, people think I made sticks, had my own business, crushing it, selling horses, started my construction company and hit 15 million. No, this kid worked at Chick-fil-A running the register when I first moved to Jacksonville.
And so I think Jesse came generally with a pretty good work ethic, but not the means to really engage that work ethic. So we went a couple miles away and bought a $1,800 pickup truck. I bought a pickup truck, and I told him he could pay me back without interest. I'm sure he negotiated that in some way where I had to pay him interest, but in any event, he paid me back timely.
Chick-fil-A wasn't for me long term. On top of that, Jordan worked for this place called Big Air, and he delivered bounce houses with these Ranger trucks that Alan financed for us, and he had a white one, I had a black one. And we would go and hook up trailers to our trucks and deliver these hundreds of pounds worth of bounce houses.
That was a real formative experience for both of us, just because of the lessons we learned, being out there extremely late or in the highest part of the sun, pushing ourselves, asking neighbors for help, rolling up water slides, 18-foot water slides.
And I got into some moments sometimes where I had to ask for help. I mean, I'm slipping and sliding. It's 9 o'clock at night. I'm loading up all these chairs, a popcorn machine, the this, the that, the other thing. Then it's this wet, soaking, 18-foot high water slide full of water. It's raining, it's slipping, it's muddy. And I'm losing my footing, trying to roll this thing up and then get the straps under it. And it's I physically could not lift this bounce house. I got my feet under me for a few months, but I was realizing that I needed to get back in track with my passion. And so I got a job working for a local general contractor here in Jacksonville, Florida. And I slowly started doing the drill gun again, just sawing the wood, doing it all. The flame inside of me was now rekindled. Jordan introduced me to some key people down at the Jacksonville House of Prayer, and that really changed my Jacksonville life, because that's where I met Mark. That's where I met Sean Reyes, and all these people that meant so much to my journey.
Yeah, so I met Jesse at the House of Prayer. We sustained long hours of prayer mixed with music. And so Jesse was one of the many volunteers.
This spiritual community was really fantastic because I was aligning more with God. There was a culture of prayer. You know, I would get prophesied over, I would get prayed for on a consistent basis. And so that really helped me grow.
At some point, in a more of a spiritual sense, you know, I felt like the Lord just told me to befriend Jesse and just to kind of invest myself more into his world. And so periodically I would get those kind of nudges from God to do that. And so I got that for Jesse, and so I just committed.
So one of Jesse's great talents is his ability to do the vlogging. And of course he's like creating his own little mini YouTube empire or whatever, and he loves to do it. It's like a passion of his, but it really started way back. I mean, there was family dinners, you know, when he was just in his early teens, even before that, where he'd be there with like the video camera, the big video camera, you know, and it sort of just kind of changed as he got older and bought equipment and got more involved into like his more, you know, extensive camera equipment. Or we'd be at dinner and he would like pull out his iPhone and always be there like in front of us. And it was annoying. Some of us would get so frustrated. Jesse, put the camera down. But then really, the truth is, he captured all of our family memories so beautifully. So now actually we're really thankful that he did it.
So YouTube has always been a huge part of my life. Even before I started my business, I was making guitar lessons.
He has 2 channels now. One of these started off as a guitar lesson, and he actually used to post on it a lot. And that's where he had most of his followers, was on the guitar. He's very good at guitar. And then it slowly merged into vlogging.
Even when I was getting hardly any views, I still kept uploading because I just loved it so much. My friend Mark linked me with Sean Reyes because he knew I was looking for a job. Mark said, hey, he does construction. I'm like, oh, really? I was like, whoa, he's a Christian. He does construction. I like the guy. He's a great like jammer, you know, like, I'm gonna go work for him.
Jesse was a great employee, very reliable. He was on time, and he worked hard while he was there. It was great to be around. He was fun to be around. Made the work a lot easier.
Working for Sean was a blast. We just laughed and filmed and did trim carpentry and installed windows and remodeled kitchens and bathrooms. And he was there teaching me the fine tuning of the carpentry trade, but I was also curious about the construction trade as well.
So I definitely could see the potential in Jesse. And so I started to explain to him some of the things that I had done when I first got started.
And when he came to me and said, Jess, you should open up your own LLC, I was like, but boss, that's what I call him, boss. This is gonna hurt you, you know? This is gonna not be a good thing for your business. Like, what are you gonna do? Who are you gonna hire? Like, what are you gonna do? He's like, Jess, don't worry about me, man. I want you to be successful. That's my best Sean voice.
I talked to him about getting his LLC, taking the steps he needed to do. I wasn't 100% sure he would go out and do that, but he immediately went out and did that.
I started the LLC. So when I was in school, the kids called me Jay Lane as a nickname. And so, how about Jay Lane Construction? So I got on a couple apps like Thumbtack, Home Advisor, Angie's List, like things like that, and built my website and built the profiles on these websites and slowly started putting together an online reputation. So I started working for this company called The Handyman Company, and they would take half of the money. And I was like, whoa, that's a huge cut, but I had to get this train moving on the tracks somehow, which was like a huge, slow process. Nothing happened overnight, but this was a catalyst. So they would bring me the leads, and I was able to go on these jobs and sell work. They wanted me to do the $150 jobs, the $700 jobs, the $1,100 jobs. I started selling $15,000 jobs, $22,000 jobs, and they're like our minds are blown. You're the youngest kid, everyone else is 60, I'm like 22, 21. So once I broke through this level, this next ceiling, this helped me think bigger. Like, what are the possibilities here? So I'm doing these like slightly larger projects, and I was starting to talk to Mark's dad, Mr. Poland, and Doug was saying, you know, Jesse, you're a good carpenter, but like, maybe you could take this a step further.
I just felt like that Jesse had the potential to do something more. We just moved off how to make handyman better, and let's get a different trajectory. Let's shoot a little higher, and that will require a license, in this case, a general contractor's license.
Also, I was dating a girl, and I was at dinner one night with her parents, and I was really close to, buying an engagement ring, and the parents knew, like, we were really kind of getting serious. So they Google average income yearly of a construction worker, $35,000. Our daughter can't marry this guy, Jesse. Like, he's a complete loser. And they came to me, they're like, hey, you can't marry our daughter, like, unless you take something to the next level here, like do something different, because this isn't gonna work.
At some point in time, the conversation led to an obstacle. So, I can't afford to get my license. I can't afford to buy the books or whatever. So we discussed how much that was, and I wrote him a check for $2,000, and he agreed to put primarily all his time and effort into studying.
So these couple things tied together were the catalyst of me starting to study for my building contractor's license.
Yeah, in that time, he was working all day and studying all night. I worked at a restaurant, and I would get home at like 1 a.m. and Jesse's like in his room with his light on, books piled around him and just like studying. He was so committed even to his YouTube channel at that time. He would study for a little while longer and then come out and be like, hey, we gotta film this other clip for the YouTube video.
I gave it all I had. I was interested in it, and I loved it.
Even back then, I could see or sense in Jesse's mind that he had a vision for where he wanted to go. Maybe it wasn't super detailed, or maybe it didn't look exactly like where he's at now, but what he's doing now was there. He could see it.
During all this mental strain, this emotional strain, this time given to this vision that was slowly unveiling itself, the relationship I was in was slowly starting to realize that it wasn't really going to work out long term. And when I decided that it really needed to be ended, that broke me. For 6 months, I cried. I thought I was going to marry this girl. I didn't want to lose her, she means the world to me, But if it's not the Lord's will, I asked him before I was going to ask her to marry me in a month. I asked him to show me if this is the Lord's will or not, and to show me what our problems would be, and I pray that he would break us up if it's not his will. And it seems like that's what's happening. And I'm just going to take this test. I'm going to do this thing. I hope I pass. I really, really do. So here I was in Tallahassee, didn't sleep all night. I was up just worrying about this test the next morning. Got out of bed around 6 o'clock, studied my books like one more time, packed them all up, went to the testing site, opened the books, and I didn't recognize one question. In that moment, I felt the blood rush to my face. I was filled with fear, anxiety. I went to the bathroom. I prayed. I was like, Lord, I know you have a purpose for my life. I know that you can help me pass this test. I felt the Lord's hand in this moment. He was like, my son, I have your back and I have your hand. Just follow me. And I opened the first couple questions and I started going through, flipping through just the building construction book, and I saw this chart. I'm like, oh, that's the chart I need. And I didn't have it highlighted, didn't have it tabbed. It wasn't in the course. It blew me away, the fact that God had his hand so heavily on me through this process. I gave it to the lady and she comes back and I passed. Just got back home, passed the test. Really excited. I'm just so thankful. The Lord really helped me, like straight up. Remember, future self, how much the Lord helped me on this test, because I got there and it was everything that we did not go over in class. So now that I had my license, I was on to this whole new season of being able to take on larger projects. Someone reached out to me shortly after I got my license and they had a 6,000 square foot waxing salon tenant improvement, a build out. This is a commercial project. This is the first permit I ever pulled. I'm 22, trying to pull this permit, trying to figure out the whole process. I'm asking everyone questions. How do you do this? How do you sign the notice of commencement? How do you do the permit application? They're looking at me like, this kid's nuts. You have your contractor's license? I'm like, yeah. Nice shirt, J-Lane shirt. And I'm like running these 50, 60-year-old guys, and I'm this 22-year-old kid that kind of knows what he's doing, Because I asked a lot of questions and I pulled in the right people, I was actually able to finish that project successfully, which I then asked for a client testimonial video, and I put that on my website. And then slowly, another person called, and then slowly, another person called. And these are some commercial people calling. I'm like, oh, I can make way more money doing commercial projects than I could residential.
He began to use vlogs for his company and kind of taking videos of his projects and interviewing people. And so, again, I mean, the things that we do in life, the experiences that we have in life, we never know how we're going to use them when those ideas mature.
So he's been successful in what he's doing now, mostly because of hard work and unwillingness to give up.
The first few years were rough. I mean, like muddy, dirty. We're digging a foundation. I always had this vision. I always say it. I'll draw it on whiteboards. I'll be like, guys, this is the foundation. We're going around digging this pit. And it feels like we're going the wrong direction. But we have to build these systems. We have to build our name, the brand. We have to build the process. We have to build our relationship with each other. The clients have to trust us. We have to build the repertoire, the track record. There's so much to be done to build a successful company. It was such a struggle getting through the first couple years of growing this business. I mean, I remember just times looking back of just complete discouragement, like I don't even know if I can continue. I feel like my business is gonna go under. I really do. This is kind of scary. But I trust you, Lord. I trust you, Lord.
Yeah, just watching Jesse grow the business is just crazy. When you live with somebody, you see the full process. So it's like, got to see him in his highs where he's like, yes, just got this contract, or, just finished this project. But also you get to see the low points, right? And just the grind and the struggle.
I need more people. So, Lord, I just ask that you bring me the perfect person. I'm gonna put this on record in my personal journal, that you would bring me the perfect superintendent, project manager, whatever I need, God. I trust you, and I thank you that you're gonna bring me the perfect people for this business. Amen. One major thing that helped me continue along this path was these prophecies I started receiving. I was in Iceland one time.
Yeah, so we were in Iceland and we went to this church. This lady who obviously was prophetic was giving a word.
She calls me out. She's like, you have an anointing for business.
It's almost like there's this entrepreneurial start something calling, like kingdom finances, kingdom financer is what I'm seeing in these business ideas. And so I just call that forth. You're Jesse, is that right?
Yes.
I bless that on you.
And she began prophesying over his life. A lot of things were right on. And that was an important time for Jesse because it was really speaking to his heart. Because shortly after that, he really made some big moves.
And I was at Grace Church and I got another one of those. I was at River City Church and I got another one of those. So I just want to document this. I just got back from River City Church and this guy named Garrett prayed for me. He just had no idea who I was. And he starts talking about, man, I just see this Bobcat, like a construction equipment. He has no idea who I am. And he's like, I just see that being blessed. I just see this construction equipment. I don't know why I'm seeing that, but I see it being blessed. The Lord knows, I believe God is real, and he uses people to speak little things into our life. And these things were a huge part of my future. I knew that I couldn't always do it all myself the whole time, but I kind of had to the first 3 4 years-ish, I started developing systems, but I had to first understand everything. I'm pushing a huge boulder up a hill, right? So, but it's not just for the sake of getting hours or just making temporal money, you know what I mean? It's about building a system that will last me a lifetime. One thing that this generation has that my parents' generation didn't have was watching people online live their lives and build their businesses. The fact that I can watch Gary Vee and Grant Cardone and Ryan Serhant and all these different guys. I remember being like if I was traveling somewhere or something, I would look over and there's people playing Candy Crush. I'm sitting there with my headphones listening to Robert Kiyosaki, getting my whole mindset altered. So I really latched onto a lot of what those kinds of people were saying and watching their lives. I slowly realized I wanted to do the same thing.
So yeah, so at the core of Jesse, again, these YouTube channels and these videos, as Jesse grew and as Jesse matured, aside from just documenting it, is to show people, hey, this is what life is about. You know, it's these ups and downs, you know, and don't let that delay you running after your dreams. You're gonna be super successful sometimes, and then you're gonna mess up sometimes. It's about getting up and trying again until you knock it out of the park.
So here I am running this business 5 years in. Up until now, I had my building contractor's license, which is the middle tier out of 3 residential, building, and general contractor's license. So I decided to go for my general to completely give myself unlimited possibilities with my career and my life. So I went back to AAA construction school. I got all the books again. I studied nights and nights and weekends and nights and weekends and just dedicated it all again, and I passed.
His ability to single out the business as, you know, his passion or calling in life, at least for these past years, and to put, you know, on the back burner some of the other things that he's good at, talented at, can do. So like guitar, for example, and also just things that are kind of excess. So, you know, he is not huge into Netflix or like binge watching shows, you know, but to really put that stuff aside and focus on building the business and, you know, other things.
Since I was 14, I started hitting it hard with work. Then when I started my business 8 years ago, it's been a non-stop mental strain, physical strain, emotional, spiritual, everything. But now my business has completely skyrocketed beyond my wildest expectations. I would not be the man I am today if it wasn't for the people that came into my life at the perfect time that God planned, because I realized relationships are the key to success in life. When you align with your passion, there is a beam of light that comes ahead of your path. You may not be able to see it all, but it's going to start showing you, when you align with it, what the next steps are towards the end goal.
It's been an interesting journey for sure. I look at him now and I'm really proud of who he's become. This is for his 30th birthday, and really, you know, it's only been 10 years or so since he did first arrive with us, you know, this lost little guy. He just found his footing, found what was his passions, and just really went with it.
I think there was one day I looked at Jesse, was like, Jesse, you're getting into realms that I don't even know if I can speak into, you know? I need to ask you for advice here, you know? And so that was really awesome to watch that transition for Jesse, moving into not looking for someone to tell him what to do, but suddenly taking the reins and going, hey, I'm plowing new ground. I'm gonna be leading people, and I'm gonna be speaking into people's worlds.
He's really turned his life around. He's a completely different man, and I think I would attribute that, and I'm sure he does a lot to his relationship with the Lord and keeping him grounded and on the right track.
Undoubtedly, we're very happy for Jesse and proud of Jesse and excited for him. Our only prayer and concern is that his life will be fixed on God and not get distracted.
Amen.
Jesse's faced a lot of obstacles in his life, both situations and people. But I've also always believed in him, and he just continues to give me reasons to believe in him.
Now that I'm 30 years old, I really look forward to seeing what the future holds. God is infinitely good, and He has a plan for you and me. Even though you may not see it all at once, life is a journey, and we must stay faithful to that journey. And when we align with our passion, It truly is a beautiful thing.
If it wasn't for his insightful videos and the way that he explains and goes about his stories, it definitely inspired me to take absolute initiative to get my foot in the door. For that, I thank Jesse.
I'm very grateful for those videos that you've shared with us, all the knowledge on how to go and get your contractor's license.
It's very inspiring what he's doing. Just keep on doing you, brother, and it's awesome. We'll keep on watching.
Hi, Jesse Lane. This is Noli from Argentina. I really appreciate your videos. I have learned a lot from them. Keep uploading videos. I'm going to keep watching them.
Jesse Lane, massive thank you, man, for all the content you've been putting out. It's really helped me to bring a hell of a lot more technology into the business and systemize it and just take the day-to-day stresses out of it.
You've also inspired me to get into contracting and to do Airbnbs and flipping homes. I just wanted to say thank you for being so transparent.
Just wanted to say thank you, man. All the information that you're giving out for free, man, it's gold, man.
Your videos are great, a lot of content. The estimating videos is one of the best I've seen on YouTube.
You motivated me to pursue the goal that I almost kind of let go. Keep doing what you're doing, keep pushing, keep inspiring.
Seriously, man, I've been trying to do this move forever, and you were the big inspiration for me to finally just pack my truck and go get it.
Jesse Lane has shown me that it's possible to achieve all your goals and dreams.
Jesse has helped me realize that there is so much more to be accomplished if you have the right mindset and if you put your best foot forward.
I just want to say congratulations on the first 30. You've proved to be a huge inspiration to us young guys in the industry. I'm excited to see what the next 30 brings you.
Jesse Lane helped me find a focus in my career. I was working for a contractor doing some miscellaneous tasks, and I had a conversation with Jesse. And he said, if you want to be a carpenter, go work for a carpenter. I made an employer switch, and after a few years of real training, I've started my own company.
Jesse has stayed on track. He's made so many sacrifices to get where he's at, and he stayed focused. I think that's a rare trait, and it's inspiring to see in somebody. And yeah, he's going after his dreams, and it's awesome.
He literally has a secret sauce to become a successful contractor.
I found Jesse's videos on YouTube. I was inspired by his service-oriented approach and his attention to systems and detail.
And with the things he was showing me and advice he was giving the public, I just quit my job, man. I started this handyman construction journey.
I had no idea what I was doing as far as working with subcontractors, and I'm a lot more knowledgeable now thanks to his channel, thanks to Jesse's channel.
Jesse Lane, wow, what can I say? A young entrepreneur / contractor / YouTuber. Man, you've been a blessing to so many. I remember the first time I watched your video. You've inspired me to not only get my license, but also start my business and definitely put more content out there on my YouTube channel. 30 years, I know this is just the beginning. Please don't stop posting videos. Don't stop being a blessing to so many people. You truly are that. You're a blessing. So again, thank you, Jesse. And I know this is just the beginning.